Welcome to the Starfish Diaries. I am your host, Liz McKean, and you might have found me from another podcast or from yoga or through coaching or maybe a recovery event, but all that matters is that you're here now, and I am so glad that you're here. On this show, we're going to be talking about identity and self-trust and recovering from all sorts of things, including shame and burnout and squeezing ourselves into what we think good looks like. And I'm going to use a lot of metaphors because that's how I make sense of the world. And I'm hoping that helps you too. I'm really just here to remind you and honestly remind us that there is no such thing as doing life wrong and that you do get to make your life into a place that you want to be. And we're going to figure it out together. So let's go. Hello. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me here on Starfish Diaries. If you're new, thanks for taking a chance on a podcast with cool artwork and a maybe kind of mysterious name. It's based on the Starfish story, which I think I told in like the first or second episode. So if you're curious, feel free to reach out or check those out. And if you are a returning listener, what a cool thing. What a cool thing. We're like buddies now. So I'm so glad that you're here. And as per usual, I think me saying as per usual is becoming something that is as per usual. And, we're just going to let that be weird. As per usual, we're going to take a nice deep breath. We're going to do 2 of them today. So before we do it, if you are in a place that you're able to close your eyes or like just feel your body relax a little bit, then that's cool. If you're not, then, a few deep breaths, even in the most distracted of scenarios, driving, walking, cleaning, whatever you're doing, it can still, just that little bit can make such a big difference. It just sends a little message to your nervous system that says, there's some safety here. It's okay to chill here. And I want that for you. I want that for us. So wherever you are, maybe just give yourself permission for it to be what it's going to be. And it's just 2 breaths. So it's not that serious, right? So whenever you're ready, just find a big breath in through your nose. Feel everything expand. And then a big sigh out of your mouth. Good. This one's even bigger. Biggest breath you've got in through your nose. We're going to hold the top. Hold it. Maybe you even inhale a little bit more air. Ribcage expands. Open your mouth. Exhale, drop your shoulders. Good stuff. We're going to do that again at the end because that's how we roll. So let's get chatting. I left myself a voice note earlier because I was like, oh, this is a thing I want to talk about. And I kind of regret doing it because I went into way more detail than I'm going to remember, which then gives me that feeling of like, oh no, it's going to be, wrong if I forget something, and there is no wrong. It's the beauty of just a conversation, right? What comes out is what's meant to come out. I have a second podcast that's going to be launching in a week or 2. I guess when this comes out, it'll be about a week away because it's going to be the week of Thanksgiving with my friend and former co-host with the Mo host from our previous podcast, Rise, Recover, Live, Bryce the Third, who is not only a podcast co-host, he also is one of my dearest friends. So I'm really excited about that. It's so fun to talk to him, and it's such a different vibe of a podcast when there's 2 hosts. So that's going to be launching. And one of the things that I've learned over the years, and I feel like that learning was fast forwarded since the day that I met him, because he just embodies this so beautifully, is the just fucking do itness of it all. The not waiting for it to be perfect, the less dependence on notes. I definitely overwhelmed him with my notes the first time we spoke together on a stage, and I learned that while that can make me feel safe, that makes him feel very stressed. And while I still like a little bit of preparation, in the past, I've over prepared. I've prepared to the point of something not feeling like me anymore, or something not even happening because the preparation just took up all the energy I had. And I really don't want that to happen here and in my life in general. And it doesn't so much anymore. And that's what I love about this podcast and the sort of informality of it, that it's just, it's just you and me. At some point, we'll probably bring some guests on just to get other voices in the room. But I love this cozy start where it's just us. And, whether I am podcasting like I am right here, or teaching a yoga class, or teaching in another way, or doing, a one-on-one coaching experience or hypnotherapy to one person or multiples, my intention that, obviously intention and the impact on the other side isn't always the same, but my hope and intention is that even in a crowd, if you hear my voice, you hear me speaking just to you. Because all that matters is how this feels to you. So you're in my mind, and I hope in yours, it's just you and me. And I feel very lucky to be here with you. So that is probably a good segue to go into what I want to talk about, which is where all the things in my life right now that I feel all I can think of to say right now is grateful, and that's just not going to fully encompass it. But to not make my editor have to redo this section, we're just going to keep going forward. So definitely grateful, but also on purpose, I guess, is where I'm going with this. The things in my life that I'm like, oh, I'm so glad it's like this, and also it's like this because I made it like this, is what has been on my mind lately to share here. I recently launched my website, so if you haven't gone to it yet, it's going to be ever evolving, but it's just lizmckean.com. McKean is McKean. It's always going to be in the description, the show notes, and my Instagram bio too, and all the things. But in the messaging that I just carefully and lovingly put together there, and what you're going to hear me say more and more in other areas if you follow me elsewhere, is just continuous reminders and invitations to make your life a place you want to be. And that could very easily sound not super genuine. Words are just words unless there's something behind it. And so what I want to put behind these words right now is some, I guess, evidence that it's possible of the way my life feels right now, and the way it feels like me and like it's a place I want to be, versus times that's not been the case, because a lot of my life that wasn't the case. And I say that from, I know I've mentioned this in other episodes, but I say all of these things from a place of extreme privilege. I know how fortunate I am in a million ways. And we all, I would say, if you're listening to this, then you share some of that privilege because you have the ability to be listening to this podcast. And we all, have different battles. So my experience is not going to be the same as yours. And, the challenges that I have are all from my perspective and my very, individual experience of life, with the things that come easy to me and the things that come very hard to me. And so I encourage you to, hear that in the way that I hope you hear other stories, which is, take what you like, leave the rest. Understand that there are things sometimes you can apply to your life that aren't even the same, that are just almost like metaphorical as far as another person's experience. But most recently, I would say, I looked around at my life just within the past few years and realized that I had crowded my life with a lot of shoulds, with a lot of the things that I felt like I should do. Much of that was to do with the things I was celebrated for. So I've recorded a previous episode about gold stars and my devotion to getting those gold stars and doing the thing that's going to get me a gold star, and that external validation that just never is actually going to be enough, no matter how many you collect. But it's very convincing, right? So like the work that I've done, the priorities that I've set, they throughout a lot of my life were because that's where the gold stars came from. I I could feel incredibly exhausted and burned out and unfulfilled. But if someone told me, man, I really admire you because XYZ being the things or the job that I was doing that was making me miserable, I would be like, all right, well, I guess that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I'm going to follow that, the light of that gold star instead of the light of what's going on in my heart. And, similar to when I was drinking, when I was looking at external validation, like drinking was the thing for a long time that really allowed me to push past discomfort. It allowed me to like elbow out the stuff that reminded me, that I was unhappy. I didn't have to think so much about the bad stuff if I knew I was just going to be able to numb it at some point during the day. And then when I was on the yoga mat, during little periods of time of sobriety, I would have those little shining through the cracks that would make me realize like, oh, maybe there's another way. And there were times that for that very reason, I would avoid the yoga mat because that light shining through, that little reminder of joy made it harder to tolerate the misery. And so I would just, go back to whatever the coping mechanism was, typically alcohol at the time, because I needed, as much as like I was craving joy and light, I did not feel like that was available to me. I did not think that was something that was like allowed. Certainly not something that I, could do and get all these gold stars for. So it's like I need to do whatever I can to tolerate the misery, really, in a lot of instances. So let me make sure that the light that reminds me that the misery is less. And I think that's what we do a lot, right? We don't want to hear about, we don't think about, we don't have time and space to dream about other opportunities, other options, because we can't imagine that they'll ever be real. And that just makes it harder to deal with the really hard things. I don't know if this is something that is very unique to me or if other people have had this experience, but I've always struggled with vacations for that very reason, because I don't want to go somewhere and like it better than my real life, because that will make real life a lot harder. I'm wondering if that would be the case now. I don't really travel very much anymore, mostly because I'm pretty happy in my day-to-day life. But I wonder how that would feel now, because in the past, it felt very difficult. I mean, my husband and I moved to Florida at one point because I started feeling so uncomfortable knowing there was somewhere else I'd rather be. Let's just fucking go there. Let's just move there. I don't want to visit there. That just makes it more painful to be here. And for better or worse, that's what we did. And honestly, I'm glad we did that. That was the right thing for us at the time. But I do think it's interesting how my brain certainly works, in that if I have decided that I'm going to be devoted to something that makes me miserable, I will blockade myself from things that don't make me miserable, because it will just be a reminder and it's too painful and I know I won't be able to tolerate it. And that's just the opposite of what I do now. It's the opposite of what I want for you, which is to elbow out the misery. You know what I mean? And this is looking at it this is a very black and white way of talking about, joy versus misery. There's obviously a lot of gray areas and a lot of nuance to this conversation. But man, when I feel misery now, when I feel dread about something, I listen to it. I pay attention to it. I absolutely have to do things that I dread sometimes. We all do, right? There are responsibilities that we all have that's going to be, there's not going to be endless sunshine and butterflies. But if I'm dreading something, that to me is a sign that I will never again ignore. And that doesn't always mean it's something that I have to never do again. When I first left a role that was making me really unhappy professionally, when I first changed up my schedule so that I was no longer working to the point of absolute, just intolerable exhaustion by the end of every single day and every single week, when I made those changes, and I made those rather abruptly, I found myself feeling a lot of dread and a lot of just resistance to anything. So I would have plans with family, with friends, something that I had raised my hand and wanted to do, and I would feel dread around it. And at first I felt like, okay, well, if I feel dread, I have decided I'm not going to do things that make me feel dread anymore. So I should probably just not do this. And let me just tell you, that will make for a very small and lonely life. So what I found that I needed to do was sit with dread, not necessarily make it a, this is a rule that we're not going to ever do this again, but sit with things that made me feel hints of the misery and figure out what needed to change, because something did. And that didn't always mean the thing itself. So in the case of spending time with friends and family, I realized that dread and that fear of misery wasn't because I didn't want to spend time with my friends and family. It was because in the past, spending time with friends and family, having anything on the schedule, certainly anything that was going to be fun, would again make the misery worse, more miserable, would remind me of all that I was missing by working a bazillion hours a week, by putting all my energy into things that I didn't really actually give a fuck about. But I felt like I was supposed to because, I would get pats on the head, and I just thought life was supposed to be hard. And now I have space. Like, no longer did I need to make sure to reserve my energy for the stuff I didn't want to do. It was like, no, this energy is actually for this. It's for the stuff I want to do. It's like, yes, I will be tired after a social engagement. Yes, I will be tired after spending time with, people and being like on and all that stuff, but it's so worth it. Like, that is what that energy is for. I used to feel like it was like a waste because I needed to save it for the stuff, but no. So it was a mindset shift. It was a realizing that was an old story, an old pattern and that like, even though my reality had changed, I had more space, I have more time, I have more rest, I've gotten more sleep, I'm more nourished, I'm, just not like afraid rope at all times. My nervous system is still very afraid of that because that was my reality not very long ago. So it took some time and work, and I'm still working on that, of finding what is the balance of having plans, of doing things that I want to do versus noticing when maybe an activity might be fun, but I just don't have the capacity for it right now. So I would say right now, today, my life is a place that I want to be. I live in a home that I feel very comfortable and safe in. I don't know if it'll be our forever home. We're renters possibly for life. We'll see. I have people in my life who I care about and I feel like care about me. I'm brave in that I'm vulnerable with the people that I love, which I hope invites vulnerability from them as well. I make money in a way that feels like I'm using the skills and the deep love for people that I have in a way that is both impactful for the people that I work with and also not exploitative of me, as I think it has been in other areas of my life. And my mind and my body is a place I want to be too. I feel safe being quiet and being alone in a way that I wouldn't have been before, because so much of how I was leading my life was not aligned with who I was. And that's not something I could have even known at that time because I didn't have the energy to even figure that out. And that took a really long time. I think about who I am now at 44, on the cusp of 45, versus who I was at 34, on the cusp of 35. And gosh, it's, I have just an enormous amount of like love for that previous version of me. And also, I feel like if I tried to step into that body and that nervous system, I would just perish immediately. I was in such a different place. And that me didn't even know that there were other options. Didn't know that it was possible to live a life that I didn't have to put all my energy into surviving. and there's a lot right now in my life and certainly in the world, holy crap, that are not ideal. I'm really sad and scared about the things that are happening in our world, in our country. And that previous version of me would have tried really hard to put her superhero cape on, but wouldn't have been able to fly anywhere because all the energy was going towards surviving, whereas now I feel like I have the ability to pick up starfish that have been stranded by the tide and maybe throw them back in the ocean to have another shot. And that's only because I realized I couldn't do anything if I also was stranded from the tide. That I also deserved to breathe and swim and have the freedom that I needed, metaphorically, in the ocean. So I guess what I could leave you with, if it was to leave you with something, which is, it turns out it looks like I'm going to, it's maybe to just notice dread, which is a real pain in the ass to notice, right? Like, I don't want to notice. Like, what? I mean, it's a lot of the times, like I said before, we dread something, and sometimes we gotta do it anyways. And I would argue that there's times we don't have to. For example, we've got holidays coming up, right? And if you are dreading what you have planned for the holidays because you know it's going to be painful and hard and exhausting and people are going to treat you badly or any of those things, then I would say if you're looking for permission, let me give it to you. Don't go. Don't go to the party. You don't have to go to the party. Don't talk to that relative. Don't make that dish that you don't even like, like, really, it's okay to do that. And I know that it's easy for me to say, and you might be shaking your head like, no, I gotta do it. So if you gotta do a thing, maybe you sit down and just figure out how you can make an adjustment so that you don't have to be in this position of dreading this thing again. And maybe it's that you start setting wheels in motion now, that next time or next year, this isn't something that's expected of you. Maybe you sit and reevaluate the way you're thinking about it. Maybe there's a mindset shift that you could make. Maybe there is some attention to be paid to the way you cope with stuff that you're dreading. I realize now, looking back, that there were things that I dreaded because I knew I was going to do something. Like, usually, again, I'm just going to always go back to drinking because it's the easiest and most dramatic example, for heaven's sake, of what I'm talking about. But I would dread something because I knew, it's going to be really hard, and that means I'm going to drink a ton, and then I'm going to feel like shit, and that sucks. And it's like, all right, well, maybe we can break it down a little bit. And wherever you're at with all of this, if you could use some help, that is what I am here for. So go to the website if you haven't already. Maybe just reading a little bit will help. There's going to be more and more ways to work with me, but there is a discovery call that you can set up if you want to get the ball rolling. There's also a spot to sign up for my newsletter, which I'm going to start putting out probably weekly. Eventually, there'll be some group opportunities to work with me, whether that's with some coaching or some group hypnotherapy that I think is really fun and really cool and just really allows you a little pocket of time to gift yourself to relax and maybe connect with the thing under the thing, right? That subconscious that tells you that you're stuck when maybe you don't have to be stuck. So you can sign up for the newsletter. You can check out the website. You can subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss a single episode. And if you are so called to, you could leave a rating and a review because that really helps other people to find this podcast too. It's a great way to support. And I would be very grateful. So in the meantime, let's support you by taking a few more deep breaths. We'll do 2 once again. I'm in a 2 kind of mood today. So maybe you give yourself a moment just to shake out your arms. Maybe you rock your head side to side. Maybe you open and close your mouth and see if you can unclench your jaw a little bit. And whenever you're ready, take a big breath in through your nose and a big sigh out. Okay, just like before, we'll hold this one. Big breath in through your nose and hold. Maybe you sip in just a little more air. Maybe you feel the ribcage expand. Nice. And then open your mouth, let the shoulders drop, and let it all go. Okay. Do that 100 times if you need to. Do it as much as you need to. Give yourself the gift of those breaths throughout the day. So grateful for you. Thanks for being here. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Starfish Diaries. I want to take a quick moment to thank some of the people who have made this possible. The artwork that I am so in love with is by my friend and the most talented artist, Mo Houston, and you can find her and her work and work with her by going to Joy Scout Studios. I will have that linked in the show notes. And thank you to my incredible editor, Sean Gritters. If you are looking for production support with your podcast, highly recommend that you check him out. His information will also be in the description.